What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleash, the weekly panel discussion show. And as always, I'm very excited to introduce a fantastic panel. You've seen this combination before, and happy to welcome back the homie, Juice Vargas of Combat Press. Juice, what's going on, my man?
What's going on, man? Nothing much. Kind of had a lazy week last week, but that's because I was sick. I didn't drop a podcast. I didn't do an article, but this is the way to start the week off right. Going on the Walkout Network and talking with you guys.
Good. So good to kick the next several days off in epic fashion with perhaps the greatest podcast known to man. And another part of the greatest podcast known to man is the senior editor of Sherdog.com. He is the jack of all trades who's mastering them all, Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's up, brother?
Hey, I am doing great. It is good to be here with y'all. I had a week off last week and saw that you guys were more than just fine without me. I'm surprised I still had a job when I got back. So I'm just very, very happy to be here.
Oh, no, the Walkout Network is not the same without the presence of Mr. Duffy. Definitely don't shout out to Pat OJ for jumping in and Jason Hartley as well for filling in the 3 and 4th chair on the show. And of course, the mathematician, the stat genius, the man who knows all the numbers and everything related to it. This is the also one of the editors at Sherdog.com, J. Petri. J, how you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling great. I just like to plug something. If you want to find Patrick OJ on Twitter, he's all day OJ, AUGER. Feel like we need to get that in for him.
Did I forget last week?
No, but we owe him. We owe him.
We definitely owe him because I owe him
for that.
Definitely screwed that up before.
But that's all right. So let me give you the stat of the week. Zero is the stat of the week. 0 is the number of fights that ended by stoppage at this last Invicta card this past weekend, Invicta FC 38. And now that's a big deal because no event in any major MMA promotion, UFC and Pride and Bellator, Strikeforce, WEC, the list goes on, has ever put on a card with no finishes, ever. So this is the first in any major outlet. So that's it's a stat to look at. It sure is.
So a dubious distinction, to say the least. So definitely want to get into it because there are so many things to talk about. And, of course, the thing that's on everyone's mind is the baddest motherfucker title has been decided. Jorge Masvidal has walked away with the chrome and black belt, which, by the way, I thought looked pretty good compared to what the UFC has done with its most recent change of the title belt. So kept the same aesthetic, but flipped the color scheme, even had a cuss word etched on it. This is a beautiful thing. Love my cuss words. So let's talk about the fight itself between Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz. All right, so let's jump out there, man. Open forum for everybody. Was the stoppage by the doctor the right call to make in that fight?
No. It was a premature stoppage. I've seen worse cuts, allowed to ride longer. It didn't seem to be distressing Diaz that badly. I mean, getting punched in the face in general was distressing him, but the cut in particular was not a fight-altering injury at that point. So, yeah, I mean, it was premature. But at the same time, looking at it from a pragmatic point of view, it didn't really rob us of much. Gun to my head at the end of that third round, I thought Diaz was probably going to get stopped in the fourth anyway. I mean, Masvidal was starting to run downhill on him more and more. The difference in hand speed, the difference in power was starting to play out. I would have said, I would have put money on it ending by TKO in the fourth if it had been allowed to play out. So, I mean, we were robbed of that, and obviously we were robbed of a nice, neat, and clean determination of the baddest motherfucker in the octagon, for whatever that's worth. But it wasn't this all-time travesty. It was just a premature stoppage of a fight that was definitely trending in one direction anyway.
All right, so fellas, you agree with that assessment at all?
Go ahead, Juice.
No, I actually think it was a good stoppage for whatever that means. I had no problem with the doctor stopping it. I thought it was justified. honestly, I was worried about it since the first round because, yeah, he wasn't bleeding, wasn't getting into his eye, but they would put so much goddamn Vaseline on that thing, and it wasn't a really like delicate part of almost the eyelid, and I've seen some bad shit in fights and actually in real life too of people who have been cut up like that, and then I've seen like the folds of their skin almost go over their eye, and that's what I kept thinking what happened with Diaz at one point or another. So I think they kind of saved him from himself, and then yeah, to be honest, we all saw it wasn't that competitive of a match. So I mean, I'd like to see it running back again. Hopefully, there's not a cut like that or whatever. But you know, I think given how much scar tissue the Diaz brothers have, the fact that they cut so easily, yeah, you expect it to happen, but that should also go with the fact that yeah, they're just gonna get more injured than most fighters.
Yeah. All right, Jay, what do you think about that stoppage?
You know, on the play-by-play, when I was writing it up, I saw at the end of the third round, well, kind of middle of the round in the third round, he really started pawing at his eye. He really started trying to figure it out, trying to get what's going on, more so than before, because it did look like it had expanded after some shots from Masvidal, because it was a pretty tough cut, but it wasn't fight stopping. And then it started to spread to about 2/3 of his eyebrow, give or take, and it started to impact his vision. He started getting more shots landed from here and working that way. And it kind of, it didn't look good. It didn't look good in that capacity. And it made me think that he was starting to take more damage, and it was, an unnecessary beating. Now, he dropped the second round at 10-8, and that he looked real bad. And I thought, a lot of us thought it was going to be stopped. But he kept going and surviving. But, I mean, Duffy's right on the money. This fight, there's no way I could see Diaz going out for 10 more minutes. I mean, it was a 30-26. I think all day long. I had it going into that, finishing up that third round. And to think there was a contingent, a relatively loud contingent of people saying Diaz is a championship round fighter. Diaz is a 4 or 5 round fighter. Well, both of the 5 round fights that have gone that far, he's lost. And like the Conor McGregor fight he dropped the 4th round. He 10-8'd the 3rd round against McGregor and beat him up real bad. And McGregor came back and won the 4th round. So, I don't know if 5-round Diaz is a myth or if it's just overblown.
It's a complete fabrication.
It is.
It's a distortion of reality.
Statistically, it is.
Yeah. I mean, because he's a guy that really does have good cardio.
Yeah.
Like, whoever said that in the booth, I think just threw it out there without really any research.
It's not the first time. It's not even close to the first time I've heard it. Like when he fought Ben Henderson, he fought all 5 rounds. It was a clean sweep. It was a 50-45, 50-44, 50-43. He was barely in the fight. He was
completely outclassed the entire time.
All the way through, and he didn't turn it up in the 4th and 5th rounds like a lot were saying. Masvidal was getting tired because he was punching him in the face. Diaz was getting a body worked. I don't think he would have kept going. I think this was a merciful stoppage, but I'll ask you guys a question that Juice kind of touched on. Instant rematch or immediate rematch, maybe in February, in March or something. Do you think that's no? What do you think?
Absolutely not. That there was nothing about that warrants an immediate rematch.
Right.
I think this is all about the title BMF. This is all everyone projecting their ideas of what the baddest motherfucker is all about. And yes, the baddest motherfucker you can say is going to want to keep going fighting. He's going to want to die on his shield and all that. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that the athletic commissions or the people entrusted with fighter safety just don't exist now. They just stopped working because you put this silly name on a fight that didn't need a silly name to be compelling. So let me break down what my experience was like watching this fight, because typically, I watch all my pay-per-views at home and I'm ready to do the walk of shame right afterward. But obviously I just moved, so internet hasn't been set up. I go over Matt Hunter's place and we watch it. We do a live chat during the co-main and the main events. We also did one for the Canelo Kovalev fight. So while we're doing that, of course, we've got the volume down so we don't get booted off of YouTube. So I'm not hearing any of the commentary, anything being told about the cut. I'm not hearing. I see Diaz cut. And I think, okay, this is a typical Diaz fight.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty bad cut, but he fights with cuts all the time. But I thought that fight should have been stopped because of the savage beating he was taking. I had that fight 30-25 at the time it was stopped. I scored the first round at 10-8 also. I mean, there was not a single moment that Nate Diaz looked like he had any control, aside from one or two combination, like a 1-2 that he landed maybe 3 times. And that was it. And Masvidal literally laughed it off. He literally laughed it off, and he hit him harder. And he dropped him multiple times. He beat him on the ground. He manhandled him in the clinch. There was nothing that I saw that says if you run that back, it's going to be any different. There's nothing that told me that if you let that continue to a 4th and 5th round, that anything different would have happened. I honestly, like what you said, Jay, about Masvidal getting tired because he was beating him. I didn't even think Masvidal looked tired. Really? I thought he was doing as much work as possible while expending as little energy as possible. I mean, it was a masterclass in efficiency with the damage that he was giving out for how little energy it looked like he was spending. So hard pass on an immediate rematch. I don't know. Am I standing alone on that one? Anyone want to see that right away?
Just to jump in real quick, nothing says BMF like getting hit in the face with a 1-2 that Diaz is famous for. Think of the Michael Johnson fight where he was ruining him, bam, bam, and just hit him. And he hit Masvidal as hard as he could, flush straight on the money, and Masvidal laughed at him. I can't think of something that's more bad and more demoralizing than getting hit with your opponent's best shots and genuinely laughing in his face. I just
blowing
the belt
to
right
the
there.
Crowd, like the up kick he took to the body that he faked like he was hurt.
Yeah, that was funny.
I mean, he was having a legitimate good time in there.
And it didn't look like a flying knee, the fake flying
knee. He faked the flying knee.
Did you watch the slow-mo footage? Diaz actually ran backwards away to get away. I didn't. I had to watch it like 3 times to see he kind of ran backwards to go, and then went, oh, come on, what are you doing? But there was that moment where it's like, oh crap. It's
like not again. Oh,
you.
Yeah, I can't understand the desire for anybody to watch that fight again and expect anything different. I really think this was all about the BMF title, people taking way too seriously and people thinking that something was going on that really wasn't. That was silly. That was really silly. It's one of those dumb hills to die on. If you're so adamant about that being the worst stoppage ever. Like I'm okay with Ben, with your opinion, where it's like you're not a fan of the stoppage, but you acknowledge, okay, he was getting his ass kicked, probably was going to end soon. Like I like the mild version of that take, but the extreme, this is silly. This is the sort of fight that Diaz is built for. No human being is built to take the punishment that he took through rounds 1, 2, and 3. Nothing says 4 and 5 are going to be any different, according to the evidence we had with 15 minutes of action. So, any thoughts we want to add to this rant before we move on just a bit?
I'll just say I am down for a rematch, but not an immediate one. I know Diaz is going to be clamoring for it. He's always clamoring for some kind of rematch, and I think at this point he's kind of earned them. This was his creation. People got to remember that, whether you like it or not. So I'm not saying he's entitled to it, but he's only basically had the Conor McGregor rematch, and then I guess if you want to throw Gray Maynard in there for whatever reason, but I do want to see it down the line. I do kind of believe Nate with the stuff he was saying that he'd been injured in camp, and I know guys are always injured, and the way that he explained it sounded like it was worse than usual. So if he wasn't all there, I can kind of believe him. Do I think that he was going to win the 4th and 5th rounds? No. I do kind of think that Masvidal was getting a little tired, so I think the 4th and 5th rounds were going to be probably pretty exciting. I thought they'd be a little bit competitive, believe it or not, but I just had that fear of the cut the whole time, so I kind of expected it I was not at all surprised by the stoppage. I thought if they let it go on, it would only be because the doctor would probably be didn't want to get pelted with beer by the fans, because that's what I thought was gonna happen. When he stopped the fight, I was like, oh, this dude better run because he's gonna get fucking hammered right now. But I'll actually give the doctor props. I'm like, hey, he was listening to the fans, to the UFC, to all the people that wanted to see it. It's like, this guy's eyes fucked up. That's what I think. I'm the professional, so it can't continue. So I want to see it maybe like a year, maybe like end of fall of next year or something, if they're still interested.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned the doctor, because I almost forgot. Now, there have been a lot of people dying on very stupid hills today. And one of those dumb hills is the idea that it's okay to attack this doctor. Apparently, he has been flooded with bad reviews for his practice on Yelp and threats and calls to his office, like the dumbest possible. Like, how stupid do you have to be to where that upsets you to the point where you're trying to trash this man's business for doing his fucking job? What a gaggle of losers out there. I can't believe this is amazing to watch. So, and there's one thing too that I really think people should understand here. It is okay to criticize the stoppage. It is okay to question things. It's okay to just not accept whatever is being told or being presented by commission officials at face value. I'm totally for that. I'm totally for challenging whatever is put in front of you. However, let's keep in mind what people's job roles are. This man is a doctor, okay? They don't just hand out medical degrees. It's not like you can go to Trump University and get one. You've got to actually work for that. He's an actual medical professional, and then on top of that, he got a better look of the wound than any of us. Whether you are sitting on press row, whether you're sitting in Madison Square Garden, anywhere, whether you are the referee, whether you are the coaches, whether you are anyone other than the doctor, you have not gotten the view that the doctor has gotten. You have not gotten that up close. And if you have, you don't know what you're looking at the way the doctor does. The guy might know what he's talking about. Just a little bit, just a tad bit. So until I see y'all motherfuckers medical degrees out there, I want you to go on Twitter. You could on Twitter at Antwalker MMA and show me a copy of your diploma that says you are a licensed medical professional, and I'll take what you got to say into consideration. Until then, fuck all the way off, please. Thank you very much. Dummies, just a sea of dummies. It's amazing. Wow, it's like new levels of stupidity every day in this sport. It really shocks me beyond none other. So now with my bit of anger vented until I get angry about something else. Now this fight was contested at welterweight, despite the fact that both Masvidal and Diaz have put in some very good work and a lot of good years as lightweights and as highly ranked lightweights. But at welterweight, now this division is really, really shaping out. We also had Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Vicente Luque on the card. So there's a lot of action going on with Colby Covington challenging Kamaru Usman finally sometime next month. UFC 244 is now in the rearview mirror, and now what does the welterweight landscape look like in your eyes? How do you see the conclusion of the year playing out in this division? Who's up next for the belt? Who has the belt? What's up?
I don't think it changes much, as is fitting of a non-title fight billed as the BMF fight. It kind of took place outside of the normal ladder of contention. The outcome of this fight doesn't really change much for the mainstream welterweight title picture. Diaz was not in title contention before. He still isn't. Masvidal is skyrocketing up the rankings, and he's still behind the crazy logjam at the top, and he still is. I mean, the UFC might try to strike while the iron is hot, and while he is, for this brief window of time, one of the 2 or 3 biggest stars in the sport, and try to fast track him to something, but there's not really much room to do that. We've got a title fight coming up. So in terms of the welterweight title picture, it changed nothing. It just put the cherry on the sundae of one of the most BMF years any individual fighter has had, in this sport for Jorge Masvidal, and it slightly sours a pretty cool year for Nate Diaz.
So you would think that Masvidal getting a title shot would be rushed at this point?
Well, considering that he's either going to need to sit for 7 or 8 months or take another fight in between against another ranked contender, but that's where he was before the Diaz fight, so it really didn't change much, except that he won as expected. Because Usman and Covington are going to need to sort things out. And he could certainly get the winner of that, but who knows how long that'll be.
Yeah. See, that's what I was thinking. Like he could be a very easy guy to put in against the winner of Usman Covington. And honestly, if he leapfrogged Covington for a title shot before this, it honestly wouldn't have been that much of a surprise. And from a competitive standpoint, I wouldn't have agreed with it, but it would be one of those things where I'm like, all right, it's kind of acceptable. The same way I looked at the like Usman leapfrogging Covington to fight Woodley. That's probably the same range I'd put that in. All right, so Juice, man, welterweight, man, is starting to flush out. Do you agree with Ben on his assessment, or do you think there's some more wrinkles that we're not considering?
No, I think he laid it out pretty well. I hadn't actually thought about this question much because, I guess Ben just explained it. He put it all out there. Yeah, it really doesn't change much. This was its own fight. I think as soon as Jorge Masvidal knocked out Ben Askren, people wanted to see him fight for the title because people just hated Ben and loved that knockout so much. And then after a few days, people were like, whoa, chill. He ain't there yet. And then I also wonder if Askren losing to Maya kind of downplayed that a little bit too. Like, I don't know, people really shitting on Askren now, and now they're really making it seem like he ain't shit. So I wonder, I really do wonder if that's hurting Masvidal a little bit. But I think him waiting out. I mean, he said he needed to heal up his hands and stuff at the press conference. If that's the case and he wants to sit out, I mean, the dude's had a hell of a year. He's taken a lot of fights, and the Askren fight was 5 seconds, but the Darren Till fight was a war for as long as it lasted. He beat the shit out of Diaz, but I mean, it was no cakewalk. So there's been that. So yeah, if he wants to take some time, good 6, 7, 8 months, whatever he needs to rest up, and we'll see how the Covington and Usman fight plays out. I think he'll get the winner of it. I can't think of another contender right now that's best to take it right now. So
let me throw something out there. Before they made this BMF fight, which I mean, remember that they slapped this whole thing together in 5 weeks?
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
Yeah. What was Masvidal saying before they made that fight?
I wanted a title fight, or
give me McGregor, or give me McGregor or a title shot, or I will sit.
Yep.
And he was saying that on the steam of how much leverage he had with the UFC then. Since then, he only has more leverage, having won this fight they threw together for him. So why would he settle for less now? I mean, in a perfect world, there's a grudge match with Leon Edwards sitting, waiting to sort itself out while Usman and Covington do their thing. But Masvidal, at this point, he knows he has a limited number of paychecks left in the game. He knows he has a limited window of time of stardom and of being in his competitive prime to make his legacy for however much he cares about that. He's gonna be right back on that, beating that drum of give me a title shot or give me. I mean, he said McGregor before, but what did he really mean? Give me money.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he got his eyes set on Canelo Alvarez.
Give me a life-changing paycheck or give me a title shot.
Yeah. The one fight that I think could factor into this that we're not even talking about right now is the rumored fight that's supposed to co-main event the January 18th McGregor pay-per-view if that comes to fruition, and that's Tyron Woodley and Leon Edwards. That is a fight that could have an impact on who fights the winner of Usman Covington. Then on top of that, you factor in the injuries that maybe if Masvidal has to sit out for an extended period of time, okay, the winner of that fight probably would be next in line. for the undisputed title. Jay, anything you want to add?
Yeah, there's a couple things. First of all, you guys are right, like 95% right about Masvidal and his station not really changing, because Diaz, just I mean, let's play the ranking game for a second. He went from knocking out a top 7, top whatever he was, Askren, to a maybe number 15 Diaz by beating Pettis after a 3-year layoff. But it was the money-er fight, money-er using as money as a verb. He has the ability to call a shot now more than ever. And I do think that he is in line for the title shot, but I also think his own post-fight interview, he said, yeah, let's run it back. And Diaz said, yeah, let's run it back. And of all the people who didn't have the dollar signs in their eyes, it was Dana who said, no, I don't want to run that back. Now, that'll change, I'm sure, when he sees the pay-per-view buys come in. He'll go, holy cow, because ESPN Plus has had a very different pay-per-view situation. That is still, for as relatively non-competitive as it was, that still would be a money fight, the rematch, for all the marbles or something, because they could run the angle. It was only stopped for a cut. Diaz is so tough that he wanted to bleed, not, they have that whole thing. It reminds me sort of
hurts my soul to hear that.
Yeah, it reminds me of when Ken Shamrock fought Tito Ortiz and claimed it was a bad stoppage. Well, no, Ken, you were getting destroyed, and then the stoppage was probably justified because you were getting destroyed. So he runs it back, and what happens? He gets even more destroyed. There was no change in the fight. Masvidal and Diaz, what you see is what you get. You're not going to have a different fight with a different game plan between these two men in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. It's going to be the same kind of fight. Diaz has skin like tissue paper. He needs to fight Joe Lozon for the Just Bleed belt. There's not something that's going to change, and that's okay. We need to have guys like that to do what they're doing there, because then you have other fighters in the division that deserve some props, that deserve some sort of a shot, some recognition, something. Leon Edwards has an 8-fight win streak, by the way. He's won his last 8 fights. He's number 4, number 5, number...
I think he's 5.
He's number 5 in our rankings.
He's number 4, number 5, yeah. So that, and that's after winning 8 fights, respectable wins, including a good win over Donald Cerrone, which boosted his stock.
Dos Anjos is the one.
It is, but Dos Anjos he's had a rough run in welterweight lately, but it's still a respectable win. Santiago Ponzinibbio isn't even in the discussion. 7-fight win streak, huge knockout, smoked Neil Magny in the 4th round in a very fun fight. Not even people don't even know who he is. Woodley is right there. Woodley, it's funny. I kind of figured that Woodley would fight Edwards, or if Edwards didn't fight him, he'd fight somebody like Maia, who just had that performance. I've said this and I'll say it again. There's a deference for former champions to work their way up the division. Champions have historically had a shorter path to get their old belt back, or to get a belt in a new weight class. Just to give you a crazy but real example, Anderson Silva was fighting Israel Adesanya. You remember he stepped in and he saved the main event. And the word was that Adesanya won, he get a title shot. Well, Silva, because he's a genius or because he's got history or all these things, made it so, okay, if Silva beat Adesanya, he might be getting right there for a title shot. He would have been 2-4 with a no contest dating back the last 6 years. Now, Silva, okay, fine. Then you look at the next guy who beat him, Chris Weidman. Weidman, if he had beaten Dominick Reyes at light heavyweight in Boston, UFC and media and everybody were talking about, if he gets by Reyes, he could fight John Jones. So he would skip the entire line. He would have been 2-5 in the last 4 years and get that shot. So
same thing with Luke Rockhold and Jan Blachowicz.
You can go down the list and see that, and it's easier for the former champions. Tyron Woodley got dominated, 50-44, 50-43 against Kamaru Usman. He's a good win away from another title shot against a guy that there's nothing. I don't see anything changing that Woodley could do differently to not get smothered and destroyed against Usman. There's levels to this game. So the landscape of the welterweight division is kind of squishy right now. Masvidal is kind of a floating area, and there's a lot of guys that aren't getting their due, and that's really too bad.
No, agreed. Masvidal is definitely in this kind of weird space where he can exist purely for the entertainment, purely for the big paycheck, but also has legitimate claim to be somewhere in the line for a title shot. So very interesting to see what plays out for him, especially with this hand injury that he wants to heal up, and some crucial welterweight fights that are on deck soon. All right, so I mean, one thing for sure, UFC 244 was a huge event, and the swing or miss, fellas. And I'll start with you, Juice. Is UFC 244 being one of the biggest events of the year? Do you think that we've entered sort of a post-championship era?
Swing, absolutely. That's what I kept thinking about as the fight was announced. I thought about this before Diaz even fought Pettis, because a lot of people, Pettis was the favorite in that fight, but I was thinking if Diaz wins, everyone's talking about Conor, but I'm like, there is the chance that he calls out Jorge, and that'd be the shit. And it happened. You guys mentioned about the weight too. These are former lightweights that went up to welterweight. No one gave a shit that it was a welterweight. No one gave a shit about Covington or Usman or Leon Edwards, anybody else in this division. It wasn't like, oh, they're gonna leapfrog. It was its own title and whatever. But some people cared for the belt, some people didn't. But at the end of the day, you didn't buy the fight for the belt. You bought the fight because it was as advertised. These are the two baddest motherfuckers in the game. You're gonna see a badass fight, and I think it's been a while that I think people have been clamoring for this. We just hadn't had the right fight yet, and I think this is the right fight where we're kind of getting almost into that boxing mode. It's not about the titles. It's not about rankings. It's who's the best fight. What are the fights that get you excited? And I think this is the one. I think people are gonna start just clamoring for good fights at whatever weight class, as long as the fighters are happy, and as long as as long as everyone's happy, as long as they can make money and be healthy and fight to their full potential, that's what people want to see.
I want to jump out there and say that I think we've already been in a post-championship era. We've existed in this era for quite some time. Since the emergence of Conor McGregor, the belts haven't mattered as much. The two biggest pay-per-views the biggest pay-per-view in UFC history, of course, is McGregor and Khabib, and that was, of course, for a lot of championship stakes at the line. But before that, McGregor and Diaz too. Before that, McGregor and Diaz won. So you're talking about two huge pay-per-views that had no title attached to them. In fact, there were title fights underneath of those. So I think I think we've been here already. Am I crazy, Jay?
Well, I mean, I think one of those had like Rumble to Sheriff, so there wasn't a belt. But I think, but it has taken
semantics. Don't try to destroy my argument with facts.
I'm circling around, brother. Don't worry. I think that you're right. Somebody said this to me the other day. I feel bad that I can't point out to who it was. That Conor destroyed the championship era. That bringing on the desire for the money fight, for the champ thing, the champ era has given way to I guess an era, if we want to keep using the term, where the title isn't the most important thing to have. The title is a good thing to have, and it's an aspiration. It's a noble goal. All this hard work is paid off, blah, blah, blah. But Kamaru Usman wanted to fight for the BMF title. The champion wanted to fight down to that title. So I don't know if it matters as much. It used to be the old days, the glory days, whatever. The champion would clean out their division, and that would be the big deal. Silva cleaned out the middleweight contenders. GSP cleaned out the welterweights, and that was remarkable. And then it stopped mattering quite as much. Mighty Mouse did it. He did it incredibly. He did it beautifully. And people went on, whatever. Why aren't you fighting at bantamweight? And then the line kept going, and the goalposts kept shifting to, I mean, think of Khabib's fights. The biggest, best perfect fight for him to have is Tony Ferguson. It's the fight. It's the fight. But there has been more talk about him fighting Conor again, or GSP coming down from the clouds to fight him at question mark weight. It's when the fights stop mattering and the titles don't matter, I don't know what you have. Because if you take it's just objectively, stop, look at the numbers, because I do that thing sometimes. Masvidal was on a 2-fight win streak, and then before that, he lost to Wonderboy and Maya. So a couple fights ago, Maya or Masvidal loses to a guy who's fighting below him on that card. Diaz is 20-11. He's won exactly one fight in the past 3 years, and it was to a former champion fighting in a new weight class. Neither were a champion ever in any major organization. The title shots that they received, they were destroyed every single time. Masvidal fought Gil Melendez in Strikeforce. I don't ever remember him being even in the fight. I'm pretty sure it was Gil 100%. In the WEC, Diaz fought purple hair Hermes Franca and Ben Henderson, the Ben Henderson fight, where, again, wasn't in the fight. They're barely 500 guys at welterweight. Like, Masvidal's like 6-4, and Diaz is like 4-4. But with the what have you done for me lately's, and the money fights and their recent successes, they can put that up and package it and tie a bow around it and be good. So no, I don't think titles matter very much anymore.
Allow me to interject yet again, because
Please do.
I think this started when McGregor makes his walk out to the cage on the prelims and they black the lights out.
Yeah, I was in Boston. That was weird.
Right, and
very strange.
And it was a very clear sign. Okay, this is somebody that we're behind. This is somebody that we want to promote, and we're going to make this person a star.
Yep.
I think when you start moving down that train, and then also too, if you just follow kind of the path of destruction that he laid out through featherweight and lightweight and even welterweight, interim titles being created as a result of his actions. The belt's being held up, and now the fighters have to try to generate interest in their own fights, to where now you make this clear line with I think Tyron Woodley is someone who was affected by this indirectly. So when it was rumored that had McGregor got through Rafael dos Anjos for the lightweight belt, then he was going to fight Robbie Lawler for the welterweight belt.
God.
And Woodley, the number one contender, when he smokes Lawler, he says, "Hey, I want the money fights." Yeah. It's this whole culture has permeated it throughout the entire roster since. So Ben, I guess I'll let you put a bow on this subject. Is this the post-championship era in your mind?
Not too much to add here. I think it has been for a while. Certainly, I've been at the front edge of people complaining about the proliferation of interim titles and the UFC just basically devaluing the currency that its own promotion was built upon. And that's been happening for a few years. I think in hindsight, maybe 5 years from now, we will look on this BMF title fight night as a watershed moment or a turning point, but I think we will probably look at it as the moment that everybody could tell that the UFC had finally figured out that they had been in the post-championship era for about 3 years. And we're just finally admitting to it and adjusting to it.
Bars. That's bars right there. I have to put that on a plaque. I like that. All right, so we're gonna move on from that, and I guess another aspect of drama related to UFC 244, and I do know we talked about this somewhat last week, but USADA and Nate Diaz had their little dust up, and the dramatic way that played out, and recently we've seen sort of these weird occurrences as far as regulation is concerned, generating interest for a fight. I mean, we just had the main event between Michelle Waterson and Joanna J, preceded by this drama. Will she make the weight? Won't she make the weight? So, fellas, and I'll start with you on this one, Jay. Do you think the promotion is now leaning on this sort of drama of the fight being in jeopardy to generate interest?
You know, it breaks my heart because I think so. I think that there's been the opportunity to go, here's an angle we haven't gone to. What if we make people think the fights aren't going to happen? They're going to freak out. They're going to talk about it. Now, of course, the adverse effects are just massive to think that people, like, for instance, the Joanna thing. You know, you have to think that people cancel their plans after hearing that the main event they came here to attend might not happen. They go, well, what am I going to do here? I'm wasting my time. What am I going to watch? What was it, Greg Hardy in the co-main event? I don't even remember. The point is that, you know, people who could come over from all around the world. Nate Diaz tested positive. Now, that was on him to an extent, but it really, the rumor mill and the media discussion and even the promotion, by not tamping it down, contributed to it. It felt like post-viral marketing. Like, if people think that there's something to be worried about and there's something to be in danger and that they need to be careful and watch out, people are going to go, oh no, and they're going to watch the weigh-ins and go, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And they're going to say, well, I have to see what's going to happen. I have to see how the soap opera is going to play out because we don't know if the fight's going to happen. That was the narrative leading up to that Tampa card. Is the fight going to happen? That's not a discussion that we should have. That's not a reasonable, rational thing to talk about. Is the fight going to happen? And that generated a shocking amount of interest. The Diaz thing, I saw it exploded. I think that boosted sales by a considerable percentage for him to get up. And we talked about this last week, to get back at USADA and to have that whole kind of free and oh, I beat them, I got through it and I made it. Damn, them be damned. But I have to think this has limits. I have to think that this is going to be the kind of thing that the promotion can see and go, oh, maybe if we make it in danger, it'll be interesting to talk about, and it'll be covered in the mainstream news, like there were CNN articles about Diaz, about him, you know, him in the drug test, and a popular UFC fighter may have tested positive for a banned substance before the fight, and they didn't. But again, think of all the everything about it. Think of the externalities. Think of the people that were flying in from Poland to see Joanna come in. To think, oh, wait a second, what's happening here? Think of the media members that come to the events covering these things, saying we're going to be here, and then things may change. Think of the opponent who hears of this thing on social media, because the promotion obviously doesn't have the wherewithal to tell their fighters that something's going on here. You know, you hear about that all the time. The fighters hear about it on Twitter that their opponent pulled out, and it's like, wait a second, that's not how any of this works. The UFC can't just pack up and ship an event all over because something messed up. That can't be our future either.
Oh, but they have.
It can't be our future. Maybe I'm idealistic. It's short-sighted. It doesn't make sense in any degree, and really feels like putting a shiny coat of paint, drumming up interest in business in controversial but very, very limited ways to say, well, we can get people looking now and sell out and sell in a year's time and flip the product. That's what I get that feeling. I don't know if that's justified. I don't know if you guys can tell me I'm wrong, but it just feels wrong, guys.
You know, I wouldn't say you're wrong. I just think that there's a law of diminishing returns on this. Because at some point we have to just stop believing it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a fair conclusion that we all would come to. I mean, all three of you guys, I definitely think are some of the more intelligent people out there, you know, analyzing the sport. You guys would see through it, and I think eventually the less intellectually gifted will also do the same. There's a certain point when you're screaming out fire and there is no fire that people stop believing you. Yeah. So anything else you guys want to add?
I'll throw in some. Oh no, please go ahead, Juice. Go for it.
You sure? You good?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was gonna say Jay made a lot of good points talking about the public, you know, fans that could change plans and stuff, but it's really unfair to the fighters. I mean, it's fucked up. Jorge Masvidal was like borderline bulimic last week. Started fucking emotionally eating. You could only imagine the death threats that Michelle Watterson wanted to send Joanna J's plastic surgeon for the whole weight thing, because everyone online was talking about her fake tits being the cause of the missing weight. It's like, yeah, it's not just the fans, Jay. You got to think about the fighters here too.
Oh no, I do. I really, it is. I mean, think of what Michelle Watterson is going through the whole week. I mean, and then to top it all off, a fight we didn't even mention, we didn't even bring up. Darren Till, Kelvin Gastelum. Darren Till had visa issues because he's had a couple criminal adventures over his home country, we'll say. He's had
adventures.
Yes, he's had his run-ins with the law and was concerned about having visa issues. And the UFC brought in a backup in Jared Cannonier in case that something happens and he's not there. Well, Jared Cannonier missed weight, so that's kind of unfortunate. The backup needs a backup. But the notion that we're 3 days out from the fight, and we don't know if, and pretend we're Kelvin Gastelum, we don't know if our opponent's going to get in the country to fight me. And this is still how is this not figured out ahead of time? How is it that this fight is billed months in advance, and Darren Till knew and his camp and his management team and the promotion knew that, well, Darren Till needs to be in New York. He needs to fly to New York City, which means he needs to get into the country first. So how is it that this was something that Kelvin Gastelum, days before the fight, like maybe a day or two before the weigh-in, says, if Till's out, I'm not taking a replacement. I'm not taking Jared Cannonier. That meant that Kelvin Gastelum was still thinking his opponent may not show up. How can this be a thing?
Yeah, it's amazing. I think was it last week, the week before last, there was a Bellator fight that was canceled 2 days beforehand because of visa issues.
Yeah, Minikov and Javier Ayala again.
Exactly. And I don't know if I was on this show or Mixed Combat Radio or somewhere. I was somewhere saying this is really stupid. If you're promoting an event and you have a fight card and a schedule laid out, you might want to have this stuff in line. Now, one thing for sure, I will criticize the UFC for so many things that they get wrong, but one thing that they always get right, at least from my experience, is the logistics of putting on an event very are top notch with the UFC, and they, with the exception of their allegiance to nu metal music, they are very, very much very dialed in on the getting fighters where they need to be, letting media know what's going on, and it's very, very direct, by the book, and very well done professionally. Wow, it just went dark in my office.
Shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll try to wave or something, see if that it works. But this is one instance where this had a Bellator vibe to it, where it's just like, dude, are you serious? The co-main event between two recent title challengers that's on the biggest card of the year, where you're expecting the president to be there and you're expecting The Rock to be there and you're expecting all this crazy fanfare, and you don't have the damn visas right. Now, I'm not very familiar with the process of obtaining a work visa, so please, if there's something I'm not taking into consideration, please kill me in the comments. Gentlemen, if you know something, please kill me on this show about it. But just seems a little bit off. Just saying.
Preach.
Well, thank you. All right, Ben, anything you wanna jump in and say your piece on?
No, I think you guys have covered it.
All right, sweet. So now it's time to get to the best titled segment in all of media, and that is I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons. This is where you gentlemen get to tell me what surprised you the most about the fights over the weekend. We have a lot to choose from between boxing and MMA. There was plenty of action going on. So what surprised you the most between the pre-fight coverage, the fight themselves, or the post-fight coverage? Ben, I will start with you.
Well, we just came out of a very intriguing UFC card. Top to bottom, this was a really good card. When you ask me about the next week's UFC card on this show, I often will give a very lukewarm take on it where, there's some individual guys I'm excited for, but not a whole lot of matchups that are really dope. This card, out of 12 fights.
Yep.
Pretty sure. I wrote the whole recap. I should know. Yeah, 12 fights. There were about 10 really good matchups. And there's nothing in this sport that I enjoy more than being wrong. Because if I'm not wrong about something after I watched a mixed martial arts card, then I didn't learn anything. And if I didn't learn anything, I could have been doing something else. I learned some stuff on this card. I learned that the reports of Kevin Lee's career death have been greatly exaggerated.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
I almost went with Lyman Good on this one. I have a whole rant about Lyman Good that's probably 15 minutes on his own, and we'll put it behind a paywall if you ever have one. But I had Gillespie beating Kevin Lee. I believed in Gregor Gillespie. I still do. I still think he is a future top 5 fighter, future at least title challenger in the UFC. You know, I believe in him in a big way. But he ran into a bigger, better, and interestingly for Kevin Lee, better prepared fighter on this night. So I was pleasantly surprised by Kevin Lee. He threw the exact right kick at the exact right time, setting it up intelligently in the perfect way. I probably too often use some variation on the phrase, fighter A was winning the fight until he wasn't. But Gillespie was winning this fight right up until he wasn't. It was a really tense and nervous-looking boxing match, almost no kicks, between two guys that were clearly, on the one hand, wary of the other guy's power, and on the one hand, wary of the other guy's wrestling. And the whole time, Kevin Lee was just measuring him and timing him. And when he threw that left head kick, just dead. This was the best performance of Kevin Lee's career, even though he beat a fighter that's basically unranked, even though, you know, he was the hottest prospect in lightweight for the last year running. This was the best fight of Kevin Lee's career, and it gives me hope that he can do better things going forward, because he is still super young, at least chronologically. Is he 26?
Something like that. 26, 27.
He's a baby.
26, 27, it feels like he's like 30 or 32 just because he has been fighting at the highest level for so long. And I would have been the guy I was the guy who leading into this weekend said that Kevin Lee had kind of hit his ceiling. He was going to be a guy who could beat anyone on any given night, but a better prepared, better coached fighter would beat Kevin Lee 9 times out of 10. I didn't believe in the move to TriStar. Lots of guys move to TriStar. Most of them come back more or less the same fighter. Kind of like lots of guys go train at Tiger Muay Thai for 3 months and accept, you know, and most of them don't come back Lumpini champion, except for one man. So Kevin Lee has a new lease on life, and I'm excited to see it, because he is a guy that has the potential to be a superstar type guy in this sport. He's a fantastic soundbite, not just in terms of saying funny or over-the-top things, but a legitimately intelligent and thoughtful dude. And all he's really needed is to put it together in the cage. And if this is the beginning of him putting it together in the cage, bravo for him.
All right. So, Juice, tell me, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment of the week?
I just wanted to add something a little to what Ben said, too, about the Kevin Lee thing, because that's kind of what I was going with, too. But
Sorry.
Go
ahead, expound on it.
Well, that means you have to talk about Lyman Good for 15 minutes now.
Well, it was I think it was clearly the most surprising thing, but it was just weird. I feel like Gregor Gillespie is now a martyr, because you see Kevin Lee's Instagram post. It's like he killed him for the Bernie Sanders revolution, you know? Like, God damn.
He felt the burn, huh?
Killed the man for the cause, man. That was amazing. But no, and if you allow me, I don't know if this is on the docket, but I don't know if we're gonna talk later about Canelo.
Oh yeah, go ahead, talk about it.
Yeah, that knockout, man. Jesus Christ. It was it's kind of funny, because I actually appreciated that knockout more, because that fight was kind of boring. You know, the first couple rounds were interesting. The first 3, 4, 5 rounds, Kovalev was winning. He had his jab, the distance going, all that stuff. And then Canelo just starts outboxing him. And then that 11th round, you could tell he's turning the pressure up a little bit. And then it was the hook and the right hand that finished him. But I don't think anyone talked about that right hand that got him right before it, got him right in the temple. And as soon as he hit him, I'm like, damn, he staggered him with that one. That left hook fucking rocked him, and that right hook just took him out. It was beautiful. It was maybe my favorite knockout of Canelo's ever, and he's got quite a few. I think people go with Amir Khan and what was the guy, the liver punch, Liam Smith, the British fella.
Yeah.
He's got some brutal knockouts, but this was, I think, up there because I know Kovalev is a bit of a front runner and a bit of a bully, but I mean, not even Andre Ward could take him out like that, or the other fellow who beat him recently. That was some impressive shit. And I'm not even the biggest Canelo fan, but I had to give him mad props on that one. I wasn't too sure about him going up and fighting Kovalev, and he handled business, man. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was something else. Just quickly, what was your how did you score that fight at up until the finish?
You know what? Especially that it was right after the Diaz Masvidal. I honestly I kind of tuned out somewhere between like the 8th and 10th round. I kind of was like looking at my phone, kind of got a beer. I wasn't paying the most attention. But I knew Canelo was winning. I knew he lost some of the early rounds, but I knew he was winning. I thought he won most of the fight. So yeah, I don't know, would be like 100 to, I don't know, 92 or whatever the hell it'd be at that point. I'm not
at
sure.
the time the fight was stopped, one judge had it 95-95, the other two had it 96-94 in favor of Canelo. I actually had Kovalev winning the fight up until that point. I don't remember the numbers, I didn't do, but I gave Canelo 3 rounds, maybe. I thought Kovalev was well on his way to winning a pretty clear decision, but of course, never be too comfortable going to the scorecards if Canelo was the guy that you're standing in against. So, all right. So, Jay, please tell me, what is your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, I'll tell you, I was not at all surprised when I saw those scorecards that said that Canelo was up. I was a little surprised he wasn't up by more, but going into the fight, I thought Kovalev's going to have to knock him out.
They tried to hide the fix just at least this time, huh?
It felt like first couple rounds Kovalev's taken. Okay, maybe he won't have to, and then Canelo will come back, and I thought, well, Canelo's going to win a decision, so that's going to happen, or Kovalev's going to win the fight and get a draw, so that's going to probably happen. But I was not surprised about that. To couple on to what Ben said briefly. Kevin Lee, he claims it's an ingrown hair, but I'm not so sure. The boil on his chest, the staph infection. Kevin Lee with staph is the new motivated BJ Penn. He's the new Chuck with a look in his eye. He's C-level Kane. He's the new C-level Kane.
Kevin with the boil on his chest is like
it's man. He looked that right to the temple left head kick. Oh God, that was beautiful. But I'm going to go with Halloween night because Halloween night was PFL 9, which is the final show of their playoffs. Their championship is on December 31st. I didn't have a surprise about one particular fight result, which in itself was a surprise, other than, a couple little wonky things that happened. My surprise was how, and we've touched on this before, but really to put it all together, was how not special 2019's PFL season has been. It has not delivered. And you can say that from a statistical perspective, from an entertainment perspective, from a ratings perspective. It hasn't delivered excitement like the first year did. I mean, just for a couple quick numbers, I won't drown you in them. The finish rate for the pre-playoffs 2018 to 2019 was a 15% drop in finish rate. 15% fewer finishes. That's not insignificant. That's 2 finishes a night if you have a big card. And in the playoffs, it's about 10%. So that it's produced more decisions. Now, decisions aren't always less entertaining, but when you're trying to put on a tournament and you're actually giving fighters more points if they finish fights, having more decisions works against everybody. It works against the fighters, their opponents, the playoff schedule, the people that are watching tune in. There's a mixed crop of stars. I say stars very, very loosely. We have a finalist who didn't participate in the regular season, didn't come in, didn't have to fight, got snuck into the playoffs and made her way there. Okay, cool, weird. A couple returning champions, Jared Rosholt, so that's going to be fun. And Kayla Harrison, her only threat was Sarah Kaufman. Now Sarah Kaufman got wiped out in the previous event, so this isn't this week's. And Harrison will be facing former opponent Larissa Pacheco in the finals, who, by the way, Harrison dominated. It wasn't a fun fight. It was not happy, and there's nothing that 7 months later will do to make that more interesting. So the PFL season hasn't delivered in a lot of ways, and you can blame it on them to a large degree, them being the promotion, the unevenness of their events, the schedule that changes from Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. Scheduling a big card on Halloween night is a dumb thing to do in the United States. Even with fewer trick-or-treaters, even if the Eastern Seaboard is raining, it's still not a smart idea to put an event on Halloween night. It's just the product hasn't delivered, and that's sad because this is a tournament. Tournaments are the thing. But the first round had a sheen. Oh, there's a novelty to it. Oh, cool. The second season is, oh, yeah, we had that last year. And that's really too bad because I want them to succeed because we need competition and we need more promotions to compete and make a difference. But I don't think PFL has. So I am very surprised by how meh 2019 has been for PFL.
All right. Well, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment. I had a few to choose from. Kevin Lee was definitely on that list, and definitely the staff Kevin Lee is the C-level Kane. I had that one queued up, so great minds think alike, Jay. But I'll go with the presence of Donald Trump and the reaction to it at UFC 244. So, I mean, it's surprising. Also that's the magnitude of 244. It's surprising to see that the UFC was used to keep the crowd sedated and relaxed, waiting for Kovalev and Canelo to make it to the ring. Like that's a surprising thing. Surprising, maybe, and perhaps this would have been better to bring up during the swing or miss segment. But whatever. It's our show. We do what the hell we want. But also let's factor in like Donald Trump being in attendance and the Secret Service actually interfering with backstage rituals and stuff with the fighters, trying to get to their coaches and whatnot. It's kind of the lunacy involved with that, and the takes that his presence legitimize the UFC because he's the president. I mean, let's not forget he has been to UFC events before being president when he was a con man real estate guy. He was at the UFC event sometimes. So it's not really, it says more about him than it does about the office, I believe. But either way, the UFC had actually beat boxing and beat the biggest star in boxing that's currently active. So that's surprising, but not that surprising. It's just amazing that things have turned around that much, because just a couple years ago, in fact, just last year, or excuse me, 2 years ago, the UFC wasn't putting up a pay-per-view against a Canelo main event. The first Canelo Triple G fight was sort of counter-programmed with Luke Rockhold and David Branch. And if I'm not mistaken, the Mark Hunt and Alexei Oleinik main event was scheduled earlier in the day of the second Canelo Triple G. And of course, we have a long history of other boxing matches that were top-notch events that were that the UFC planned around. Mm-hmm. So without getting into that history, that's my I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment. So
hey, can I point out something real quick?
Yeah, of course.
About Trump, just we're not going into politics, just merely the name and everything.
Stick to sports. You stick to sports.
UFC 30 it was named Battle on the Boardwalk. Now, was that because it took place in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and it was held in the Trump Taj Mahal. This was the first Zuffa card that was held that after they took over from Semaphore. So it was the first, the big change in the guard, and it was in the Trump Taj Mahal. So he's been involved for a good while.
Right. All right. So and also too, if he's also like, isn't he a WWE Hall of Famer?
I think so.
So I just wanted to say that. So that's just funny. All right. So now it's time for me to flex my
Just had a
authority.
stroke.
It's time for me to flex my authority and let y'all mofos know who's in charge. And we call that segment of the show the speed bag. And this is where I dictate the time and I tell you how long you have to answer my questions. Although Jay prepared these questions, so there's that. But anyway, semantics. I'm in charge right now. So let's start it off. We'll start it off with our special guest, Mr. Vargas. My friend, you have 10 seconds to answer this question for me. Did Corey Anderson do enough to leapfrog his way into a light heavyweight title shot against John Jones? You have 10 seconds and go.
No, Dominick Reyes is still more exciting, and they both may not be well known, but Dominick Reyes is going to get more eyes.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Not only is Juice one of the more slept on minds in the sport of mixed martial arts, he's also a man who respects the clock. Ben, you can learn some things from him. Here's your opportunity. Tell me, did Corey Anderson do enough to leapfrog his way into the light heavyweight title picture? You have 10 seconds and go.
He certainly should. If Johnny Walker had done that to him, he'd be in the next title fight. Fair play is fair play.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Juice spreading good habits, getting you under the clock. Kudos to you, Juice. You take all the credit for Ben's good work. All right. Now, Jay, your turn. Corey Anderson, did he earn the title shot against John Jones? And go.
Walker, Latifi, Glover, and Cummins, Weidman, Ozdemir, OSB, and Cannonier. I think he did.
All right. Look at that. All this respect for the clock. Is this really a sign that you respect my authority? I'll take it as that. Now, second question. I'll start with you, Jay. Both Edmen Shahbazyan and Maycee Barber are 21, and they're both undefeated. If they keep winning, who is the first to get the title shot and go?
You got to think Barber because of the depth of the division, but at the same time, 185 is so top heavy, he might sneak in, but no, we'll still go with Barber.
All right. Oh, wow. Just in time. Look at that. Beautiful work, Jay. Juice, you're spreading good habits to these fellas. I appreciate it. Now, keep those good habits up. You got 10 seconds. Edmen Shahbazyan or Maycee Barber, if they remain undefeated, who gets the title shot first?
Jesus, you're really going to make me say it, huh? Maycee Barber. Edmen Shahbazyan's with Edmund Taverdi, and I still don't trust him. It's Barber.
All right, fair enough.
Just blowing up the question altogether. I love it.
It's just like the hell with it. I like it. Challenging the authority, yet respecting it at the same time. That's what we call, sir, a democracy. Now, Ben, it's your turn.
I don't think that's a democracy.
All right, Ben. So who gets the title shot first between Shahbazyan and Barber if they both remain undefeated?
It's going to be Barber easily. Given the right confluence of injuries and happenstance, she could get a title fight next. Shahbazyan is at least another 2 fights away.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, okay. Yeah, those are your last sentence. I was ready to jump in, but you got it off there. Yeah, there it is. All right, so last question. I will start with you this time, Ben. Do you believe that 85 million people tuned in to watch 1 century as the promotion claimed in a recent press release? And go.
No. And in fact, I think they may have exaggerated it by a factor of 100. I would not be surprised if 850,000 people watched it.
All right. So, Jay.
No. Let me say something outside the bell.
Please.
Yeah, go ahead.
You are only laughing because they said something fucking ridiculous. If the UFC ran a random card on free TV on a weekend and said, hey, our viewership numbers were 850,000, everyone would be, hey, that's pretty good for a free random card on a weekend. It's only because one championship claims that 85 million people watch their fucking card that is comedy. It is unintentional, self-manufactured farce on their part. It is the thing that sets them apart, for better or for worse, from every other promotion in the world. If they had simply said, hey, almost 1 million people watched our card, we would be like, hey, that's pretty good, considering nobody knew who any of the people were on your card. It's because of their ridiculous hyperbolic claims that this is even a running joke.
Well said, sir. So, Jay, tell me, do you believe that 85 million people tuned into 1 Century?
No.
Oh, well played. Juice, I don't know if you can top that. I'm not even going to start the clock. Do you believe 85 million people watch 1 Century?
No, and I actually feel just bad because, I mean, especially with you, and this is your territory to shit all over one. So I don't know how and with what Ben and Jay said, I don't know if I could top it, but I guess I will say maybe they go with these hyperbolic numbers because of how big Asia is. They don't think that the Asian people will understand 850,000, you know? It's got to be over 1 million, so, you know, you got to up that shit big time. That's not even. That's like what 1% of China's population. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's beyond silly. At this point,
I do actually have a sort of almost serious note. They did say that China brought in almost 10 million people. Now, when a promotion or whatever, when a press release goes out and they highlight a number, it generally is the best. It's look at how cool this was. Look at how big this was. So 10 million people watched in China, theoretically, according to their numbers. That means that that's the most they had from one country, and it goes down from there. So just the numbers can't add up. Who would have, say, Arjun Bullard, 20 million people from India watching? Well, when they would say 20 million people from India watched, but no, they put out their big number to make us go, well, dang, well, China's got 1.5 billion people, so maybe. No. I'm gonna go back to drinking my water.
Yeah, just no. Yeah, I don't think there's a better word for that. So now I have to respect the clock. So I'm going to start the timer. I'm going to give myself 30 seconds to answer all 3 questions. First one, did Corey Anderson do enough to leapfrog his way into a title shot? I say yes, he did. I think he honestly could have gotten a title shot before, and he was passed over because his style isn't exactly aesthetically pleasing. Johnny Walker was going to get a title shot if he won this. So now Edmen, Shahbazyan, Maycee, Barber being undefeated, I would say Barber because she's an attractive woman, and that's what gets you a title shot sometimes, especially when the division is so shallow. And then, no, 85 million people did not watch 1 championship. It was more like 85 trillion.
I'm right under the clock. Beautiful.
So that's really, they're really putting in some press releases. That's what's up. Wow, I really was floored by that one. That was just a stretch too far for me. It's like, come on, fam, what are we doing? So anyway, the UFC is headed to Moscow this weekend. And there are precisely 117 trillion people out there across 36 galaxies that are waiting to watch this. Now, Zabit Magomedsharipov and Calvin Kattar will be in the main event. Obviously, a fight that I think holds a lot of weight as far as entertainment value is concerned. Alexander Volkov and is welcoming Greg Hardy to like an actual heavyweight fight, which is pretty nuts to think about. But what else on this card stands out to you, if anything? Juice, I'll start with you. What's a potential fight of the night here that we might be sleeping on?
Jesus, you know what? I didn't even look at the card. The only thing I remember is with the Greg Hardy Volkov fight, and I don't think it's gonna be a fight of the night. It's just gonna be a murder. And Jesus.
Well, you know what? It's okay to not, because I don't recognize most of the names on this card. And I think
I know there's a lot of Russians. I know there's a lot of – and Malayev and Telov and whatnot, you know?
Yeah, go ahead, Ben. What were you saying?
I was gonna say I'll give Juice a minute to review it, because I will just jump out and say this card is pretty dry, even for a Russia card. The fight at the top is low key interesting because Zabit is winning left and right, and he is a very exciting fighter in the cage. A lot of the fighters that come out of that region of the world are, their fights are not appointment viewing. Zabit is I don't know how he is still winning fighting like this. He's doing what Johnny Walker thinks he's doing. he is doing crazy shit to his own strategic detriment and still winning. So, I mean, more power to him for as long as he can do it. And Calvin Kattar is the perfect guy because he will engage him and he will oblige him. And he has the sneaky chance of turning his fucking lights out if Zabit makes a wrong move defensively. So it's a great next stepping stone for him. South of that, this card is pretty dry. Greg Hardy is stepping in on short notice, and I mean, far be it for me to give too much credit to Greg Hardy, because I'm already very much on record regarding him, but moving in on short notice to make 266 again is actually kind of a thing for him to do. I mean, he is going to have to not drink water the day before, to get back under 266. But the rest of this card is pretty light. I'm interested to see Roman Kopylov. When you have an 8-0 prospect coming out of the Dagestan, Caucasus, Chechnya region, there's every chance that they've not fought anybody good. This guy is actually a really impressive fighter. He has a well-rounded skill set. He has finishing ability. He has everything you want to see in an 8-0 prospect. And he's fighting Carl Roberson, who is no joke.
Yeah, that's a tough test.
Oh,
and considering that most of the other fights on this card are set up to really favor the local fighter to do well, apparently the UFC's matchmakers are seeing something I'm not, because while I'm pretty high on Kopylov, I think Carl Roberson might be a bridge too far too soon. So if he ices him, you know that this guy is legit and is going to be a force sooner than later and is going to be a fighter to watch by the end of 2020.
All right. So, Jay, I know you've analyzed this top to bottom.
Oh, man, I'm telling you what, I have just dug into this card.
I'm so sorry.
No, I haven't done my play-by-play prep yet, so I can't actually speak to that. I will break the rule a little bit and touch on the main event as well, because I do truly think that is probably our fight of the night. I do have an interesting different take on it. I think Kattar's going to take it to him. I think Kattar's going to do what Jeremy Stephens couldn't do. He's going to pressure him, he's going to work him, and he's not going to drop 2 rounds until he figures out his range. What he did to Shane Burgos in Boston a year and a half ago was a very telling performance. That he can figure out what's going on, he can take damage, he can deal with the pressure, he can adapt, and he can come and take care of it. Kattar's only loss in the UFC is to Renato Moicano. There's no shame in that. And then he smoked Chris Fishgold and Ricardo Lamas. The Lamas one, that was a big feather in his cap. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say I'll pick Kattar in prime picks, but I'm thinking about it. I'm really thinking that this is a trap fight for Zabit. Now, what's working against Kattar, and really Kattar more than Magomedsharipov, is it's a 3-round fight, because the main event was rescheduled on short notice, so this was bumped up to the headliner status and wasn't given 5 rounds. So we're going to be stuck with a 3-round main event. My dark horse fight is probably Delta Champion. I'm really interested to see how far he can go, because I don't know if he can. He fought in his debut, he fought a fighter that, he got a gift in his debut fight. And he looked fine, but
he's toast.
But Magomed Ankalaev, man,
he's Dalto's toast.
Ankalaev has lost 1 second in his UFC tenure so far, and that was to Paul Craig getting the triangle at literally 4:59. Something's going to give. Dalto's 35, so I don't know how far his ceiling is. If he gets by Ankalaev, then holy cow! But again, like Duffy said, this is a card more than usual that really heavily favors the hometown fighters. That there are some UFC Brazil level matchmaking there. Where you go, oh boy, I guess I wonder if they want the Brazilian to win here. So I think that's what we're gonna have, and Alexander Volkov is going to make paste out of Greg Hardy, and then we'll go, okay, now what do we do? Nothing happens.
Yeah. All right, Juice. So anything standing out?
Well, yeah. If we're going with the fight of the night, yeah, I'll go with Kattar and Magomedsharipov. That's a fight that I've been excited for since the minute they announced it. I don't know what it says or what it implies that it's in Russia when it was originally meant to be in Boston a few weeks back.
Big difference.
Yeah. Because I know Magomedsharipov trains in Jersey with Frankie Edgar and them, but I don't know if he lives here. So I've always wondered about that. But yeah, obviously that's a hell of a travel for Kattar. I think it'll be very competitive. And I will say that Kattar's fight with Burgos a few years back is a underrated classic. I think that was an instant classic, and not a lot of people gave it credit. I've loved that kid ever since I saw that fight, and I would not be surprised if he wins. I think Magomedsharipov is a favorite for good reason, but yeah, much like Jay said, I would not be surprised if he wins.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too, man. Yeah. So when you watch it back, you'll understand why we're laughing. I can't really say that there's any particular fights that I'm looking forward to aside from the main event. But I can say there are a few people. I'll take the Duffy approach. There are a couple of names that intrigue me here. Rocco Martin is really jumping off the page at me. He's a guy who was building up a lot of good momentum until he ran into Damian Maia. So I'm curious as to what he looks like in a rebound against Ramazan Emeev. If I hope I pronounced that one correctly. But so I'm very curious as to see what he has to offer. But as far as the main event is concerned, I'm gonna jump out there on a limb. I think Calvin Kattar is gonna take this one. I think he's so fundamentally sound. With a lot of things, his boxing is so sharp for MMA standards.
Exactly.
And a lot of times when you have a guy like a Zabit who does a lot of spinning and flying around and whatnot, the basic way to handle that is just straight up boxing. And Kattar, I think it can deliver on that regard. So, and especially since Zabit does kind of fight outside of what might be strategically sound for whatever reason. Kattar is the guy that would capitalize on that. So I'll pick him for the upset. And that's kind of it. I mean, I think we all are in agreement of what can happen with Alexander Volkov and Greg Hardy if Volkov remains focused as he was the first 14 minutes and 50 seconds of the Derek Lewis fight. I think we can leave that there. But now let's move on to our final segment of the show, and that is Buried Treasure. This is where you get to tell us about some sort of headline, something related to the fight world that just may not be getting much attention, and you just want to share it. So, Ben, I will start with you. What is your Buried Treasure this week?
Remind me of what I was talking about that I wanted to to talk about.
You wanted to talk about the LFA in Texas, I think.
I don't think that's what I was going to talk about. I think that's what Ant was going to talk about.
Oh no! Well, Jay, share with us your Buried Treasure this week.
I just throw it all out there. Well, then I guess I'd be happy to talk about the LFA. I suppose LFA has been a very popular promotion in the United States. If you are an LFA champion, you basically have a direct line to the Contender Series or a short notice UFC bout, almost all the way through. I think every LFA middleweight champion has fought in the UFC, and I think many times the UFC has actually scheduled a former LFA middleweight champion against another former LFA middleweight champion. First event is November 15th. The next event is November 22nd, and they will both be on UFC Fight Pass, which is a huge, huge development to localize, centralize, and bring the talent all in one platform, I suppose. It's a buried lead or buried treasure or buried story because it was kind of sort of hinted in between rounds in the broadcast in 244. Between like the second and third round of one early prelim fight, John Anik said, "Oh, hey, by the way, in case you're curious about the LFA, check it out." And I didn't feel it got the credit it deserved. And I think I even actually mentioned it in the play-by-play that, hey, this is happening. That's good, because the LFA is an enjoyable promotion to watch. They're going to have good fights. They're going to have young talent you've never heard of, and that's the point, because you will hear of them at these events, and then you'll hear of them again going forward. It makes all the sense in the world, and it was just a matter of time, I thought.
All right. So, Juice, let me know what your buried treasure this week is.
Well, it was not exactly buried because it was a news story, but Kat Zingano got signed to Bellator. She's gonna fight in their featherweight division, and I know people saw that story most likely, but I don't think people are appreciating how good this is for Bellator and for that division. I'm glad she's staying up in the weight. We know she's had many problems ever since the Amanda Nunes fight and whatnot. So I think her going up in weight, especially with the issues she had with her pituitary gland or hormones and stuff, it's good that she's going up in weight. And the first thing and probably the only thing I thought of when she did get signed is we get to see Kat Zingano versus Leslie Smith most likely at some point in the near future. And man, I am here for it. I am here for all of that.
Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic fight. I can't wait till they put that one together. All right, Ben. So let me know what your buried treasure this week is.
Oh, my buried treasure is that amid all the weird hype and hyperbole and pageantry of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson presenting the inaugural BMF belt this past weekend, was also the announcement that he was going to be playing former early MMA championship standout Mark Kerr in an upcoming biopic. I mean, this story hit me on several different levels, because as someone who's been a fan of this sport since Mark Kerr was still a top 10 heavyweight, I still think that The Smashing Machine, the documentary pick about him that came out in about 2002, but only covered events up to 2000, where Mark Coleman won the Pride Openweight Grand Prix or Pride Heavyweight Grand Prix. Yeah. I still think it is the best documentary that's been made about mixed martial arts. It might be the best documentary that's been made about any combat sport, which is saying a lot considering some of the ones that have been made about boxing. And it's one of my 5 or 6 favorite documentary films of all time. Like, Mark Kerr's story resonates with me. But the announcement of this, in spite of the fact that The Rock is one of the biggest celebrities in the world, was met with kind of a fizzle. Like, it just kind of plopped. And that's because a lot of people coming to this sport in any of its last 3 eras, in the post-Tough era, in the post-Brock era, in the post-Conor and Ronda era, don't have any idea who the hell Mark Kerr is, or why his story is interesting or inspiring or heartbreaking. So here's hoping that they make a great biopic out of it. Certainly, The Rock is a great choice to play prime Mark Kerr, because the thing about prime Mark Kerr is that he was the original. He was the original what would happen if a real A-level athlete from another sport moved into this thing and just started fucking people up. The rest of his story is not quite as uplifting. I mean, we're talking about he was never a hard dude. He was never a killer. He was a guy that before his MMA debut in 1996 or 1997, where he flew down to the jungles of Brazil to fight 3 times in one night, was like, I'm going to drop out of this tournament if I see blood. Luckily, he apparently meant his own blood, because he won that tournament and went on to have, quite the intriguing career. But, let's hear it from Mark Kerr. He is an irreplaceable part of this sport's history, especially when they write the history of this sport 100 years from now, like they are for baseball now. He will be like a mythical proto figure for what he did. And he is still a guy that's alive right now. And I think he's only 2 or 3 years older than me and is kind of struggling with what this sport and his own life choices done to him. So hopefully this biopic does some good things for him in a real practical sense. But that's my buried lead for the week, because the MMA fan sphere buried the fuck out of it when it was announced.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, that got no sold really quickly by the crowd there. I don't the Diaz army isn't exactly up on its MMA history apparently. So
does Diaz himself know? Could he tell you anything about Mark Kerr?
I'm sure he could.
Probably.
I'm sure he could.
Isn't he a wrestler though?
Yep.
Yeah.
Diaz,
but he's also named the Smashing Machine.
He beat Randy Couture for a national championship.
Yeah, so definitely something that the crowd just didn't quite understand the magnitude of. Yeah. But my buried treasure for the week is actually about the UFC's continued efforts to foster the Asian market, to step on the toes of one Chatri. Now they have the Contender series now an Asian edition. So in addition to the US one and Brazil, they now have one that's going to be filmed at the New Performance Institute in China. So with the Chinese champion Performance Institute and a series that is dedicated to finding talent. I mean, a much more efficient way of finding talent than Tough has proven to be in its later iterations. With the Contender series, I think there's a very clear direction that they're heading in that market, and they want a piece of those 85 million viewers. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Now,
have you seen that Performance Institute in China?
I haven't been there, but I've seen
mock-ups. It's fucking huge.
It makes the one in Vegas look like a Gold's Gym. Like, no joke. It's like 100,000 square feet. That's
nuts.
I almost can't fathom that.
Yeah, that's like a real complex for a multi-billion-dollar corporation, which UFC is. Now that will conclude this edition of Unleashed. So want to thank Juice Vargas for stepping on the show. Want to thank Jay Petrie and Ben Duffy, as always, for jumping on here and making the whole thing work. So, gentlemen, quickly, where can we find you on social media? We'll start with the special guest of honor.
Thank you, Matt. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Juice_MMA. Way more active on Twitter, not so much Instagram. You can find the podcast at iFox with Juice. We're usually on Spreaker, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, basically anywhere you can listen to podcasts. We're there. I co-host weekly with my host Reen. We didn't drop an episode last week, but we'll for sure drop one this week, usually around Thursday or Friday. So once again, thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you for showing up. And Jay, where can the good folks find you?
On Twitter at Jay Petrie. I don't do that whole Instagram thing, so you're not going to find me there. If you find me there, it's an impostor, so don't find me there. You can find me on Sherdog.com under the features drop down, right in there. Play-by-play, betting odds, news, fight facts, statistics pieces. I'm everywhere in the fight game you need me to be.
All right. And Ben, where can the lovely folks watching the Walkout Network find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Benjamin Duffy or at Sherdog.com. You can find my fingerprints all over a lot of stuff.
That's what's up. All right, and I'm Ant Walker. You can find me on Twitter at Ant Walker MMA. It's also my Instagram. I don't post much, but follow me anyway, just in case I do. So you got to like, you got to subscribe, you got to share. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. So he's Juice, he's Jay, and he's Ben. I'm Ant. You know what you got to do. You got to stay beautiful. You got to stay positive, and you got to stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.